When Ben-Hur thundered into theaters in 1959, it didn't just premiere as another Hollywood epic. It redefined what epic meant. At a time when television was pulling audiences away from cinemas, MGM gambled everything on a single, massive production. The result was a film so large, so ambitious, and so physically demanding that many believed it could end the studio entirely if it failed. Today, more than 6 decades later, Ben-Hur is remembered as a classic, but strangest, boldest, and most surprising stories are rarely discussed. So saddle up, grip the reins, and prepare to look beyond the chariots. These are 20 weird, shocking, and little-known facts about Ben-Hur, 1959. Subscribe for more hidden stories from classic Hollywood. Comment your favorite Ben-Hur fact. Fact 1. MGM bet the entire studio on Ben-Hur. By the late 1950s, MGM was in serious trouble. Once the most powerful studio in Hollywood, it was bleeding money due to declining theater attendance and expensive overhead. Television had changed entertainment forever, and MGM needed something colossal, something TV could never replicate. Ben-Hur became that gamble. The studio poured an estimated $15 million into the production, a jaw-dropping figure at the time. Adjusted for inflation, that's well over $150 million today. If the film failed, MGM executives openly admitted it could have bankrupted the studio. There was no backup plan. Sets were constructed in Italy that were so massive they resembled real cities. Thousands of extras were hired daily. Costumes were handmade by the tens of thousands. Entire sequences were shot multiple times due to lighting errors, performance issues, or technical limitations of large-format film. What made the risk even stranger was that Ben-Hur had already been adapted once before, in 1925, and remaking such a famous silent epic was considered dangerous. But MGM believed that bigger was the only way forward. Every department felt the pressure. Crew members worked punishing hours. Directors and writers were replaced or rewritten mid-production. Charlton Heston later said the tension on set felt like working inside a ticking bomb. Yet the gamble worked. When Ben-Hur premiered, it wasn't just a hit. It became the highest-grossing film of 1959 and went on to win 11 Academy Awards, a record that stood for decades. The film didn't just save MGM, it defined the modern blockbuster model. Fact 2. Charlton Heston wasn't the first choice for Ben-Hur. Charlton Heston is now inseparable from Judah Ben-Hur, but the role was far from guaranteed. In fact, MGM initially looked at several other major stars before settling on him, including Burt Lancaster and Rock Hudson. Lancaster turned it down, reportedly wary of committing years of his life to such a physically brutal production. Hudson, while popular, was considered a risky choice for a role requiring intense athleticism and dramatic gravitas. Heston, meanwhile, had already played Moses in the Ten Commandments, 1956. Some executives feared audiences would see him as too biblical, essentially recycling him into another robe and sandals role. William Wyler disagreed. Wyler believed Heston possessed something rare, a mix of physical authority and emotional restraint. He wanted Ben-Hur to feel internally conflicted, not saintly. Heston trained relentlessly for months, learning sword combat, rowing techniques, and chariot handling before filming even began. The role pushed him to the edge. Heston lost weight, suffered injuries, and endured brutal Italian heat. At one point, he questioned whether he could physically finish the film, but that struggle translated on screen. Ben-Hur's pain, rage, and eventual spiritual transformation feel earned because the actor lived it. Heston later admitted that no other role ever demanded more from him or gave him more in return. Fact 3. The chariot race was filmed without CGI or camera tricks. The chariot race in Ben-Hur isn't just iconic, it's terrifyingly real. Spanning nearly 9 minutes, the sequence took 5 weeks to shoot and required months of preparation. There were no visual effects, no green screens, and no safety shortcuts. Real horses ran at full speed. Real chariots crashed. Real men were thrown into the dirt. Charlton Heston and Stephen Boyd, who played Messala, trained extensively to drive the chariots themselves. While stunt doubles were used for the most dangerous moments, much of what audiences see is the actors actually racing. One stunt performer was thrown from a chariot during filming and nearly killed. The footage was so dramatic that Wyler kept part of the accident in the final cut, carefully edited to appear intentional. The arena itself was a colossal construction, built from scratch in Italy and larger than most real Roman circuses. Over 15,000 extras were used, each costumed and choreographed. The dust, the noise, the chaos, it was overwhelming. Crew members later said the ground literally shook during filming. To this day, the chariot race is studied by filmmakers as one of the greatest action sequences ever captured, not because of technology, but because of sheer physical commitment. Fact 4. Jesus is never shown on screen by design. Instead of depicting his face, the film presents Jesus through gestures, shadows, and reactions. We see his hands, we feel his presence, but we never see him directly. This wasn't censorship, it was intentional reverence. William Wyler believed that showing Christ's face would humanize him too much and risk alienating audiences of different faiths. By keeping him partially unseen, the character remains universal and symbolic. Charlton Heston later said that scenes involving Jesus felt different to film, quieter, calmer, almost reverent on set. Crew members reportedly lowered their voices during these moments, treating them with unusual seriousness. The approach worked. The film avoided controversy while still delivering profound spiritual impact. Fact 5. One of the film's most emotional moments was never fully scripted. One of the most powerful scenes in Ben-Hur happens quietly, without spectacle, when Judah Ben-Hur, chained and collapsing from exhaustion, is given water by Jesus. What makes this moment unforgettable is how restrained and human it feels. That's because much of its emotional impact wasn't locked into the script. Director William Wyler believed the scene needed simplicity rather than dialogue. On the day of shooting, he adjusted the staging, asking Charlton Heston to play the moment with exhaustion instead of reverence. Heston later recalled being told to react as a man who has lost everything, not as someone witnessing a miracle. The actor's response, slow, broken, almost disbelieving, came naturally. The camera lingers on Heston's face just long enough for the audience to feel the shift inside him. No dramatic music swells. No explanation is offered. That restraint turned the scene into the emotional backbone of the entire film. It quietly links Ben-Hur's physical suffering with his spiritual awakening, a theme that would later come full circle at the crucifixion. Fact 6. The script was rewritten constantly during filming. Ben-Hur is often praised for its structure and clarity, but behind the scenes, the script was in constant flux. Several writers worked on the screenplay, many of them uncredited. Scenes were rewritten overnight, dialogue altered on set, and entire character motivations reshaped mid-production. One of the most controversial contributors was Gore Vidal, who later claimed he helped shape the relationship between Ben-Hur and Messala as something deeper than friendship, adding emotional intensity to their rivalry. According to Vidal, Stephen Boyd understood and played the subtext deliberately, while Charlton Heston remained unaware. Whether intentional or not, the tension between the two characters feels unusually personal for a biblical epic. Their conflict isn't just political, it's emotional, intimate, and bitter in a way that feels modern even today. That layered rivalry became the driving force of the film's drama, elevating it beyond spectacle. Fact 7. Messala was written as a tragic figure, not a villain. Stephen Boyd's Messala is one of the most complex antagonists of classic Hollywood cinema. Rather than portraying him as a simple tyrant, Boyd played Messala as a man corrupted by power and wounded pride. Messala believes Rome represents order and progress. Ben-Hur represents loyalty, tradition, and personal freedom. Their conflict isn't about good versus evil. It's about incompatible worldviews. Boyd infused the character with bitterness, regret, and obsession. Even at his most cruel, Messala doesn't see himself as wrong. He believes history will justify him. That complexity makes his eventual downfall tragic rather than satisfying. His defeat isn't celebrated, it feels inevitable. Fact 8. Stephen Boyd's career was overshadowed by Ben-Hur. Ironically, Boyd's powerful performance became a burden. After Ben-Hur, Hollywood struggled to place him. He was too intense for lighter roles, too specific to escape Messala's shadow. Despite strong performances in later films, he never regained the same momentum. Meanwhile, Charlton Heston's career soared. History remembers Boyd fondly, but quietly, as one of classic cinema's great what-if stories. Fact 9. The film's 11 Oscars changed the Academy forever. At the 1960 Academy Awards, Ben-Hur made history by winning 11 Oscars, including Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Actor. It was an unprecedented sweep. The win established large-scale epics as legitimate artistic achievements, not just crowd-pleasing spectacles. It also set a benchmark that future films chased for decades. Few movies have ever dominated the Oscars the way Ben-Hur did, and none did it with such physical filmmaking. Fact 10. The sets were larger than many real cities. The production built massive Roman sets in Italy, including an arena larger than many historical circuses. Streets, palaces, and marketplaces were constructed at full scale. After filming, many sets were demolished because storing them was too expensive. Entire cities were built, used, and erased, existing only on film. Fact 11. Filming conditions were physically brutal. Cast and crew worked under extreme heat with little modern protection. Extras fainted. Horses collapsed from exhaustion. Crew members suffered dehydration and injuries. This wasn't glamour, it was survival filmmaking. Fact 12. Thousands of extras were used daily. Local Italians were hired in massive numbers, sometimes exceeding 10,000 people on set. Coordinating them was a logistical nightmare. Yet their presence gives the film its unmatched sense of scale. Fact 13. Costumes were handmade in massive numbers. Tens of thousands of costumes were designed, sewn, and aged by hand. Armor was real metal. Fabric was heavy and uncomfortable. Actors often complained of exhaustion simply from wearing their wardrobe. Fact 14. Animals required months of training. Horses, camels, and other animals were trained extensively. The chariot horses alone were conditioned like athletes. Their discipline is a major reason the race sequence works so flawlessly. Fact 15. Cameras had to be custom-built. Standard cameras couldn't capture the scale Wyler wanted. Custom rigs were designed to survive dust, speed, and impact. Some shots nearly destroyed the equipment. Fact 16. William Wyler was known for extreme perfectionism. Wyler demanded dozens of takes for even simple scenes. Actors were exhausted, but the performances benefited. He believed fatigue added realism, and often he was right. Fact 17. Charlton Heston performed many dangerous stunts himself. Those stunt doubles were used. Heston insisted on performing much of the chariot driving himself. He suffered injuries and exhaustion, but refused to stop. His physical commitment gives Ben-Hur its authenticity. Fact 18. The musical score was monumental. Miklos Rasha's score was recorded with a massive orchestra. It blends religious reverence with martial power, becoming one of cinema's most recognizable soundtracks. Fact 19. Ben-Hur redefined the epic genre. After Ben-Hur, every epic was compared to it. Most failed. Studios realized scale alone wasn't enough. Commitment mattered. The genre slowly faded because nothing could match it. Fact 20. Ben-Hur marked the end of an era. Ironically, Ben-Hur represents both the peak and the conclusion of Hollywood's golden age epics. It proved how far filmmaking could go, and how unsustainable that level of ambition was. It stands alone, untouchable, ultra. More than 60 years after its release, Ben-Hur, 1959, still stands as a monument to what filmmaking once dared to be. It wasn't safe, it wasn't efficient, and it certainly wasn't easy. But that risk, that almost reckless ambition, is exactly why the film still matters. Whether you admire it for its scale, its spirituality, or its craftsmanship, Ben-Hur remains proof that true epics aren't manufactured. they're survived. If you enjoyed this deep dive, share which Ben-Hur facts shocked you the most, and let us know which classic Hollywood epic you want explored next. Because some legends don't fade. They thunder forever.